West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
9 a.m. in the Mile High
help
City
us.
on this Friday, August 1st,
Now here's Jeff
2025.
Hunt.
Good morning,
Bill
Denver,
Thorpe.
Colorado.
The
You
Jeff
tuned in
and
to
Bill
the Jeff
Show
and Bill Show
on
News,
Talk
Talk 710 KNUS. Billy and I continuing the conversation. Has Thomas Kincaid gone woke? I think there's lots of evidence there that when you support the purchase of any of his artwork, you're actually funding a family foundation that looks at the world through a Marxist worldview. Seems that white people are the problem and that we need to be out there supporting BIPOC, indigenous, LGBTQ. And look, I understand that they don't want DHS posting their stuff. I get it. You don't agree with their politics, that's fine. But then to post some of the statements that they made makes me believe that the Family Foundation is run by very woke people. And it just goes to an argument from my perspective that the entire fortune, $60 million plus, built upon Americana conservative values, is now going to fund a woke family foundation. You should think twice about purchasing any of their artwork. Bill, we got a caller, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We've got Nick in Denver. Nick, what's on your mind this morning? Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks for taking my call. I was just thinking about what is the appeal of Marxism over, let's say, capitalism? And I think the appeal is Marxism basically lets you off the hook. When things go wrong, you can always blame something or somebody else. Traditional not right-wing, but conservative viewpoints holds you accountable. You are accountable for your actions. Marxism says no. It's always somebody else's fault. So you can always blame somebody else.
Yeah, Nick, to that point, Dennis Prager would often say the big difference between the conservative and progressive worldview is what's wrong with the world and where does it originate from. So the conservative will go, what's wrong with the world is me, is my own failings, my own problems. If I don't have money, it's because of me. If I'm not in a happy marriage, it's because something I have to do and I have to fix. And so the responsibility becomes upon the individual to improve themselves, to seek new opportunities, to go out there and make the world a better place, starting with myself. The progressive leftist worldview goes, there are oppressors versus oppressed. In fact, it's the first page of the Communist Manifesto. All of history is oppressor versus oppressed. The problem is the oppressor. Therefore, we have to go out there and fight the oppressor. And when you put things into those categories, what we've often seen among Marxists is that you then greenlight the oppressed to do whatever they want against the oppressor. You see it in the on the college campuses with regards to Israel and Hamas, that if you put the Palestinian people in the category of oppressed and the Hamas leadership in the category of the oppressed, then treating the Jews on our college campus as oppressors, we can ban them from classes, we can intimidate them, we can bully them because they are oppressors. So I think Dennis Prager would agree with you. Nick?
Well, I just think that it might come down to the fact that we humans, like just about every species on this planet, are lazy. And it's a lazy man's answer to the problems in the world. It's never your fault. It's always somebody else's fault. And you have no incentive to look inside you to say, well, maybe I need to change some things from the inside out.
Now, don't we have conservatives blaming people for things going wrong all the time? I mean, we have migrant crime wave during the last election. I mean, isn't that part of it too? Isn't it the illegals coming in and doing all the other stuff, the transgender doing stuff, the blame of an abortion, and we're not looking at the idea. We sit here and think that if we make a rule telling people that you can't commit abortion, that it just will stop. It's not the experience in other countries. It's not the experience of what you see in the Philippines, which is a strongly Christian country, and they have laws against abortion. I disagree. I think both sides use blame and like to blame when things fail, and they spend a lot of time pointing the finger at other people. The idea that either one is at the core self-reliant and built on the idea of individual exceptionalism is crap. Doesn't exist in either side. Either side is more than willing to blame people when things go wrong all the time. It's just a question of who the target is. That's all it is.
Well, you're partially right in my opinion. It's just that blaming others seems to be codified in the Marxist-Leninist viewpoint, whereas it's not on the other side of the fence.
Well, and I
disagree
Nick,
with that.
Nick,
happens too.
I think, like with illegal immigration, for instance, I don't think you see conservatives going, well, they're the oppressors. They're the problem. We need to fight back. The conservative argument against illegal immigration is that there is a rule and a process, and you, in your own individual capacity, have decided to ignore that. Now, there's consequences to a Biden administration just allowing 20 million people to pour across the border. You're going to get criminals. That's not the oppressor-oppressed worldview. It is you are an individual. There is a pathway. You chose not to follow it. We're going to hold you accountable to it. That's different.
I disagree per se, because what they're not looking at is the idea of why. They're not looking at, the idea of when Nick was talking about, well, if my life isn't going well, I look internally as to why it's not going this way. Well, we have all these illegal immigrants going over, and what was it that you just did there? Blame the Biden administration. It was the Biden administration's fault. There was the pointing of the finger, not looking at how we as Americans have set the system up. And I've talked about this. How we've set the system up is an incentivization of illegal immigration, because it is so problematic and onerous in order to follow the correct path. If you want to get your kid out of a situation that involves guns and human trafficking, you're going to wait a decade? Really? That if you had abuse going on in your own house, and you said, well, I just wanted to see what's going to happen in 10 years from now, and then I'm going to deal with the problem, you would be a lousy parent. Yet we incentivize illegal immigration, in my mind, because of how we deal with legal immigration. Yet in your case there, Jeff, and Nick's as well, first thing we do is point back to the Biden administration. The first thing we do is blame someone else.
It's the difference between accountability.
Accountability is always hung on someone else.
Putting everybody into this framework of oppressor versus
but you hung the accountability on somebody else. That's the issue.
Well,
accountability is always
because
somebody
they
else.
deserve it. They made choices, so we're going to hold them accountable.
Yeah, and American makes choices about how we have our immigration system, and we deal with the problems therein. Yes,
but
there it is.
That's different than what you have with Thomas Kincaid Family Foundation, BIPOC, standing with BIPOC LGBTQ. That's just, it's a totally different worldview. Nick, I sure appreciate it.
Thanks,
We've
Nick.
got George Brockler coming up. The debate continues. Now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good morning. TGIF 64 and mostly sunny, expecting a high of 86 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story: stocks are sharply lower after the announcement of the new tariff rates by DJT this morning. Crews with the Colorado Department of Transportation have begun installing a new avalanche and rock slide fence near mile point 186 on Vail Pass. CDOT resident engineer John Cronholm says the fencing is a first of its kind.
Eliminate the need for active avalanche mitigation by triggering the slide. So this is all passive avalanche mitigation. It has not been used anywhere else, and it might be unique to the entire country.
The fence is part of a 5-year, $315 million I-70 West Vail Pass Auxiliary Lanes project aimed at reducing road closures and delays during winter storms. Materials were airlifted to the mountaintop this week, which is amazing to me. And one final helicopter delivery is planned for September. The fence is expected to be operational by winter.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
The heat is on Hillary, the hoaxer, and all the corrupt Barry gangsters who pose as sweet, innocent old men and women. They're the fraudulent deep state who tried to pull off the coup in 2016 and pulled off one in 2020. Just the News says that after alleged Clinton-Russia ruse was intercepted by the U.S. intelligence agencies, Joe Biden took the first shot at smearing DJT in 2016. On Monday, we told you about the middle-aged couple in Cincinnati that was attacked for nothing, allegedly, by a gang of thugs in Cincinnati. Bernie Moreno, he represents their district, and he cannot believe how the media has swept this story under the rug. The lady got cold-cocked by the bystanders, the police, and first responders wouldn't even help her. Amazing.
Could you imagine punching and beating down to the point of unconsciousness a middle-aged woman? Imagine if that was your mom, or I think about it, if that was my wife. So she's laying down on the ground, completely knocked out. When I was talking to her, she was describing the event. She said she finally, got consciousness back. And she remembered saying to herself, so much blood. She just kept repeating that, so much blood all over her. Police officer came and basically just looked at her. The police department's down 200 officers. They're completely demoralized because they won't actually punish criminals. I'll get back to that in a second. So she gets up, blood all over her. No ambulance. Nobody asked how she was doing. She called an Uber to get home.
That is incredible. Unbelievable. Sickening. On Benny Johnson this morning, he says this was definitely a hate crime. Denver Mayor Johnston believes they're close to a deal with the Broncos on a new stadium. They'd like the stadium to be funded by the organization, and it needs to be. Congressman Gabe Evans and U.S. Deputy Labor Secretary Keith Sondering visited Ames Community College Thursday to see how artificial intelligence is being integrated into job training programs. The tour highlighted how students are using AI tools to support fields like animal science and agriculture. Broncos training camp continues today and tomorrow, and they are off on Sunday. The Pirates in town tonight to take on the Rockies in Lodo at Coors Field. 63 in Englewood, 62 in Lakewood, 64 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I like these kinds of ear pods that have the thing, because I've served on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I have been in classified briefings, and I'm telling you, don't be on the train using your ear pods and thinking somebody can't listen to your conversation. I'm just telling you, that's a little bit more secure.
For the love of God. Have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's a different day, but the weather forecast is about the same. Highs will be around the lower 80s, partly cloudy with another round of afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms likely, some producing heavy rain, lows tonight upper 50s. Bit warmer, middle to upper 80s Friday, scattered afternoon and evening thunderstorms, upper 80s and lower 90s for the weekend with isolated afternoon thunderstorms. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
The Douglas County jury has found a Jefferson County canine handler not guilty after the dog broke out of a kennel at their home, biting and injuring a 2-year-old girl and her dad in the yard. The 2-day trial ended with a not guilty verdict reported by Fox 31 a little over an hour after the jury got the case to deliberate. But Colorado's 23rd District Attorney George Brockler enraged over the outcome and situation. He joins us now. George, what's going on here?
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, this one really perturbed me, and I should start with two things that folks ought to appreciate. First, I'm a big lover of law enforcement. Nobody that has heard me talk over the last 20 years in the public eye thinks that anything other than, look, I defend these men and women because I respect the hell out of them for what they do. We count on them for public safety and putting themselves between us and the bad guys. And that's why we have laws that say things like, listen, there's liability that attaches to other people for certain things, but not to you guys and gals when you're doing your jobs. Well, enter this case. Back in, I think it was August of last year, there's a dude who's at his house, and he's got a dog, and it's a Belgian Malinois. And this dog is, he sets him in a cage in his backyard, but doesn't secure it. And when I say doesn't secure it, I mean it has a latch or a thing you can put a stick in, a carabiner, a lock, a film. He doesn't do it. He just closes the door, goes on about his business. This dog busts out of the cage, which apparently was pretty easy, according to the animal control officer who testified, leaps over a 5-foot fence and attacks a 2-year-old girl at her birthday party in her backyard with her twin brother, bites so hard into her leg he snaps her femur. The dad testifies it's audible. The dad goes to save the daughter's life, and the dog, of course, turns and attacks dad, sending him to the hospital. Now, Jeff, you guys raise dogs. You guys know that if your dogs get away from you and go on someone else's property and attack them or kill their livestock, there's a charge called harboring a dangerous dog, and there are some pretty serious consequences for such a thing. And so
I think the family's justified in trying to kill the dog. Like what we tell our family is if our dogs get out, you have to be ready. Because in my mind, the neighbor is fully justified in shooting the animal, especially if it's attacking somebody.
Oh, you're right. Had this dad, of course, come to the birthday party in his backyard with his toddlers armed, yeah, he certainly could have shot and killed him. When he tried to get the dog, but there was a moment in trial. Let me just get this. The defense attorney says to the dad on the stand, he goes, isn't it true that Ragnar, that's the other name they gave Cujo, the killer Belgian Malinois, isn't it true that he only bit you after you put your hands on it? And I thought, oh my, what? And the dad says, yes, when I tried to save my daughter's life by pulling her leg out of his mouth, that's when he attacked me. So you're right, Jeff. This guy would have been completely justified in killing that dog. But he doesn't. Instead, he tries to save his daughter's life. Now, for anybody else in the state of Colorado, that becomes harboring a dangerous dog, strict liability crime, bing, bang, boom, it's over, right? So enter this guy. This guy in the backyard that let his dog go is a sheriff's deputy from Jeffco. Now, Jeffco touches Douglas County, but it doesn't sit on top of it. And that's important because this guy claimed to be immune from prosecution and invoked a part of the law that exists, not for a purpose like this, but for a different one, and says, you can't prosecute me. I'm not guilty. It's an affirmative defense. And prosecution, you have to prove I wasn't in the performance of my duties. Well, get this. This law exists because you might use a canine for something like chasing down a murderer, trying to sniff out a rapist who's hiding somewhere. And along the lines, that dog might accidentally bite the wrong person. Well, of course, you don't want law enforcement prosecuted for that, so you build in a provision of the law that says, hey, if you're in the performance of your duties, we're not going to have you be liable for this law. That makes sense. Get what this dude said. He said, well, I am supposed to take care of this dog that belongs to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. It's not my dog. It belongs to Jeffco Sheriff. And part of my duties are to clean up its kennel. So I was inside the house at the time, cleaning the urine out of the kennel, thus performing law enforcement duties, and therefore I'm immune from the law. Now, to add insult to injury, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office sends 2 of its taxpayer-funded commanders on taxpayer dime to come down to the courthouse and testify that, yes, indeed, we have a contract with this guy that says that one of the things he needs to do is to take care of the dog. So, yes, He was performing law enforcement duties, and therefore he's immune from prosecution. Judge advises the jury that we have to disprove that he was in the performance of duties. The evidence that they have is from two Jeffco guys who aren't from here. They don't work here. They don't answer to us. And bing, bang, boom, the status of the law being what it is, the jury acquitted. And when they talked to our guys afterwards, they're like, we're just confused by this. Like, we felt horrible for the girl, but the judge advised us that we had to find he wasn't doing the duties thing, but these guys said he was. I am pissed. I mean, I couldn't be more upset at the willingness, one, of a sworn peace officer to try to dodge liability on some garbage defense like I was cleaning up dog pee in my house. And then I'm really pissed off at the sheriff's office. What kind of leadership is it to send your commanders into the courtroom to provide cover for this guy for his failures that resulted in that? And I heard Billy talk about it in the 6 o'clock hour. Lifetime trauma for this girl. Lifetime trauma. It pisses me off.
It seems like the motivation's to avoid a lawsuit, to avoid the cost, and that's got to be the reason they sent these guys, right?
This is the product of weak leadership at the executive level for the Jeffco Sheriff's Office, but also, and you see this with weak leaders all the time, listening to your county attorneys. County attorney is got to be in the sheriff's ear saying, don't say anything, because listen, where have you seen the sheriff come out and say, we're horrified by what happened? What can we do to make this right? Instead, they shrug it off like no harm, no foul. I mean, my God, man, with this defense, that dog could have killed the 2-year-old, killed her twin brother, killed mom, killed dad, killed all the other attendees at the birthday party, and then still gone to court and say, well, I was cleaning up dog pee, so sorry. That's it. Are you kidding?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's George Barnes.
I am shocked by the idea that one of the requirements inside of this wasn't to secure the animal. And what I mean by that is the idea that if we would take something like a police car, a police cruiser, we would take a firearm, we would take anything else, a taser, anything else that a law enforcement officer could be using in the course of their duty, if they did not act within reason, secure that item and something else happened to it, are they now held harmless? Does it not matter if I leave the keys, if I bring my police cruiser home for whatever reason, and I'm in the process of doing some sort of law enforcement thing, I left something at home and I have to get something, a file or something that is part of my job, and I leave the keys in that cruiser, and a kid jumps in there, takes off, and smashes into a family, killing all of them down the street, am I held harmless? Because I was in the process of performing my law enforcement duty. If the issue just is, even though I am not on the, quote, clock or involved in a law enforcement action at the time, that then I get qualified immunity for anything I am doing that is connected to something that is owned by the police department, wow. Yeah. That is a huge umbrella.
It's a huge umbrella, and it's true because they had both of these commander supervisor types come in and testify that this guy is, in essence, by virtue of a contract between them and him, has nothing to do with his neighbors or the community or our sheriff or Douglas County, just a contract they have with them. He's on duty 24/7. So anything and everything that he does, that the dog ends up taking. So I imagine if this guy takes the dog on a walk and the dog attacks and kills a hiker, it's like, well, I'm on duty. If this guy decides to go to sleep at night, I know that sounds crazy, but go to sleep at night, and the dog gets out of the house and attacks and kills someone, well, I'm on duty. I'm on duty 24/7. The cage that you talked about, his explanation for it was, well, yeah, I don't hit that special latch to make sure the door doesn't open, because every time I put him in there in the past, he hasn't gotten out. And it's like, well, to your analogy, Billy, if a police officer were to leave their loaded handgun on the kitchen table and for 2 months none of his kids pick it up and shoot each other, but the next day they do, how does that sound? Well, they've never shot each other with the gun before, so I thought it was okay to leave it like that. I mean, what concerns me about this, what really frustrates me, and you can hear it in my voice, is I hold these men and women in such high regard. We give them such broad, expansive authority and powers over us and our liberty. We protect them with these laws, and then this clown comes along, doesn't secure a cage, dog gets out, mauls a kid, could have killed him, mauls dad, and then has the audacity to come to court and say, I'm immune from prosecution because I'm a canine handler. It's offensive.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you really do get the sense, listening to George Brockler, that this is a justice issue for him and not getting justice for this young 2-year-old girl. George, what's the fix here?
Well, I brought up two things in a couple other statements that I've made while this case was going on. And the first one is we got to find a legislator, probably someone from Douglas County, to come in and redefine what performance of duties means, to cut out this garbage that I'm cleaning up dog pee in a kennel or something like that, to be legitimate law enforcement functions. The problem is I hate putting the camel's nose under the tent on providing more regulations on law enforcement, but it's this kind of tortured exploitation of an undefined term by an unscrupulous law enforcement agency and its agent, this deputy, that leads to this kind of thing. Well, I'm happy to spearhead the charge on that. So we need to change the law to define this so we don't hear this, it's an unsettled area of law. The other thing we probably need to do, and I think other counties probably need to do this, is we just take for granted that agencies that have their deputies armed with these canines, trained canines, and not just trained to behave, but trained to do really vicious things to bad people, that we just let them plant them here in our communities with apparently absolute impunity and immunity. That can't be the case anymore. So my suggestion was our commissioners pass an ordinance or something that directs every outside agency. This isn't just about the failures of the Jeffco Sheriff's leadership, but all outside agencies. If you're going to put one of these trained dogs, a hazard, a risk, in our community, you got to register it with the sheriff's office, and you also have to notify everybody in your neighborhood, just like we do a sex offender registry. We do that out of the risk, too. These two things at least give people a fighting chance.
Ooh, that's interesting, George Brockler, Judicial District 23 District Attorney, joining Jeff and Bill live, because I had, my wife worked in insurance for decades, and one of the things that she did have to deal with are dog bites. And so imagine that inside a community, you would find out that the person moving in next door to you, across the street, or a few houses down, has a dog that, as you said, is trained not only just as a guard dog, but also to attack bad guys in a very vicious manner. However, if that dog gets loose inside the neighborhood, you have no recourse. You don't have any legal recourse. The only thing you can do is to kill the animal. That would be the only thing that would be justified. So if that dog in that neighborhood gets loose and attacks any one of your family members, the person that is responsible, that owns that dog, that is taking care of the dog, is now held harmless. So imagine that everyone else in the community there is held to a standard of making sure their dog is under control and can't attack anybody, except, and this is the crazy part in my mind, except for the one person in that community that is charged with enforcing the law and standards. That's the one person that is not held to the standards. Crazy.
That's right. The other thing that's interesting about their claim that we couldn't get traction with the court was this guy's claiming I'm in the performance of law enforcement duties, but because he's a Jeffco deputy in Douglas County, he has no powers. Unless a felony is committed right in front of him, or he's working alongside law enforcement from this county, he has powers to do zero. He can't go execute a search warrant in your house, even if he has one from Jeffco, without the accompaniment of law enforcement. He can't pull people over for speeding or traffic violations. This guy's powerless to do anything. But because of the involvement of the Jeffco Sheriff's Office sending their paid guys down here to give him cover, we've now converted cleaning up dog pee in a kennel to a law enforcement function.
Jeez. And this is going to be the case that is going to be held up as Exhibit A the next time legislators or anybody else comes after qualified immunity. This is going to be Exhibit A for taking qualified immunity away from our law enforcement men and women.
That's exactly right. George Brockler.
It's just an abuse of authority, man.
Yeah.
It's just
so
an abuse.
grateful.
It really frustrates me.
You're standing up for this young girl, the family that was affected by this, and holding law enforcement accountable to what they should be doing. Way to go, George. Thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill
Thanks
Show.
for giving me
so
time
much,
to
man.
talk about it. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Have a great
All right, we
weekend.
got some cowboy poetry with Jeff Hildebrandt coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's Colorado Day. Friday, August 1st marks the 149th birthday of Colorado. Next year, we'll be celebrating 150 as America is celebrating 250. That's why we're called the Centennial State, founded 100 years after our nation's founding. So happy Colorado Day to you, Bill.
Hey, happy Colorado Day to you, too. I think the state doesn't look a day over 148.
Is it better today than it was 150 years ago? That's a
good question.
Area of discussion. Now it's time, though, as we like to on a Friday morning, ride off into the sunset with some cowboy poetry. Joining us now is Jeff Hildebrandt. Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Well, good morning to you, and I want you to know that I brought a special candle for today for Colorado Day.
Did you?
Yeah, it has a big C on it, and you can see it later.
Oh, great.
Anyway.
What do you got for us this morning, Mr. Cowboy Poet?
You know, you live on a ranch.
Yes, sir.
And so this may be familiar to you. The cowboy called the vet to come and meet him at the stable. It seems his horse had something wrong and simply isn't able to stand or even raise his head. Well, the vet comes on the run, but by the time he gets there, there's nothing can be done. The vet said, "Pard, your pony's gone. There's nothing I could do." But the cowboy won't accept it and says, "Doc, that just can't be true. I want a second opinion." Well, the vet is shocked at that, but he heads out to his Chevy and he comes back with a cat. He puts it down beside the horse and it goes from tail to head. The vet said, "See, the cat agrees. Your old horse is dead." Then the vet goes out and gets a Labrador Retriever in hopes that this will finally make that cowboy a believer. The cowboy watched as the lab goes round and round the bay, and the vet said, "See, I told you, your pony's passed away. That'll be $600. That's what the doctor said. "600, roared the cowboy, just to say my horse is dead? Well, the vet said, no, that's 50, but I had to charge the rest to cover the cost of the CAT scan and the additional lab test."
Oh, that was wonderful. That was great. I was hoping that was where you're going. I was hoping. When he brought the cat in, I'm like, oh, I hope so. I hope I know where this is going. Oh, that is fantastic.
I loved it. I had no idea where you were going, so I'm sitting there going, well, what's the cat have to do with it?
Yeah.
No, you got me good there, Jeff
That was so good.
You mostly never know where I'm going.
The thing was that I'm wired a little oddly too, Jeff, so I could see it coming. I'm like, I kind of think this is great. That was so good. Nicely done.
Okay, they said they're selling satellites and demand is really growing. So I ordered one for rides at night to see where I'm a-going. Now, the feller who sold me my saddle said, "Do you want one with a horn?" And not wanting to appear naive or suffer this man's scorn, I said, "Of course, I want to have the biggest one around." But I think that old guy swindled me, 'cause that horn don't make a sound. I asked him just what's best to use to tie the saddle on. He told me that'd be a cinch, but that feller, he was wrong. The horse just kept on moving. I just didn't have the knack. Then the guy said I should snub him. So I went home and turned my back. Well, that won't work, I soon found out. My horse just didn't care. He never put that saddle on while I was standing there. I broke my thumb, wrenched my knee, just getting that thing on. So you can say I'm saddle sore, and you would not be wrong. But the biggest pain I suffered, now promise not to scoff, since I didn't have no place to go, I had to take that darn thing off.
Lots of good puns on that one.
Oh, that is good. Those are great puns. That's fantastic.
Now, Jeff, how often are you writing these poems? Is it a daily exercise for you?
No, daily exercise is getting out of a chair. That's about as much as I can.
Did you hear our conversation about the presidential fitness test coming back?
I'm really looking forward to that, and I'll be watching to see how many sit-ups he can do.
See, I love that because that was my idea. The idea that sending it out there and saying that the presidential fitness test doesn't work, just making the kids do it. However, if the president would take the test and set the standard and then challenge the kids to beat him, now you got something. Now you got something where the kids are going to try to do that.
Yeah, I think you got a little problem with your language there. Too many kids, I'm afeared, would be looking forward to beating the president. With sticks and bricks and whatever.
Yeah. So as to what Jeff was asking there, though, it's weird for both Jeff Hunt and myself to understand the process and the creativity behind these poems. Is it something that you have to sit down and you make time for? Is it something that just kind of comes to you? Or is it one of those things where, kind of like me, it's like a bunch of moths bouncing around in your head and you have these ideas and every once in a while one escapes? How does it go?
The last thing that I want to think of is me having anything to do with something like you.
That's you and most of the audience. Most of the audience, my friend, is feeling the same way.
It's hard to really say. Some things come fairly quickly. Tuesday, as a matter of fact, I was at our church food pantry, and we had some folks who were all just joking around back by the hospitality table, and the big thing was, we're 81 and having fun. And so they're all standing back there, and wives and everything are saying, they're 81 and having fun. And then they said, you ought to write a poem about that. And I did. I sat down and wrote a quick little poem. They're 81 and having fun in new careers as volunteers. And then I go on about the health and mental health and physical health of actually being out doing stuff, continuing to do stuff, and how much better it makes you feel to be helping other people when you can. And so then just this week, the people that are in charge of the food pantry put a picture on their newsletter and put the poem on there too. So sort of to encourage the rest of the volunteers and anybody else. Who knows? Maybe somebody at church will say, well, I'm about to turn 81. Maybe I'll come over and help.
Oh, that's cool. And I love the fact that they put your picture in there. And they
well, not my picture. I'm not 81.
No.
Okay.
Oh, no. But you said to put a picture in there. And I was just worried because normally when they put my picture in the bulletins, it's accompanied by the phrase, if you see this man, call this number. It just worries me.
Well, we'll continue. We've got some more poems coming your way. Some cowboy poetry brought to you by Jeff Hildebrandt. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
To the Jeff and Bill Show. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. We've had quite a morning debating lots of issues, talking with folks like Bobby Daniel, George Brockler, discussing the presidential fitness test and whether or not you could pass it. So all that at 710knus.com to download the podcast. As we like to on Friday, as we wrap up the week, here's some cowboy poetry from Jeff Hildebrandt, our Cowboy Poet Laureate. Good morning, Jeff. Let's dive right in. What do you got for us?
Well, I tell you what, everybody knows about Santa Fe, right?
Yeah.
And the historic Santa Fe Trail. This is the Santa Fe Trail tale. They left from back east, heading westward. They were all bound for old Santa Fe, but the broad scenic view was breathtakingly new, and they stopped several times on the way. They continued their journey out west, but they found, as they went through a stream, the wagon got stuck in loose gravel and muck, and they nearly gave up on their dream. Then when water ran dry, they decided it's better if they turned around. It was pleasant back east, where each meal was a feast, and the water was easily found. So they gave up their dream of a future, full of love, satisfaction, and peace. They settled instead for 3 meals and a bed, and their happiness never increased. Now when you face temptation and trouble, think back on this Santa Fe tale. Keep your focus ahead to where you are led by God's Spirit, and you'll never fail.
That's great.
That's nice. I think sometimes we get too involved in our own problems and our own issues to not listen to the voice of God, because very rarely is he going to show up with a burning bush or smack you in the face with it. Very rarely. Oftentimes it is in the quiet moments, or it is in the parts of your life where you're not expecting it, that he all of a sudden, it's a nudge, it's a whisper, it's a feeling. That's how it's going to work. Because if it was a burning bush, that's way too easy. That's way too easy. Because, what do you do then? I'm sorry, I got to go do this. Burning bush talking to me. Well, okay. It's much deeper as far as your faith and your commitment when you have to listen to the quiet words and the quiet suggestions. That's where you find them. That's just my opinion.
And there's a lot that's right in front of you to keep your mind on the trail that you're following.
Yeah. Yep, there is.
You don't get distracted.
Yeah, and sometimes we think that it's our own path rather than following the one that God's laid out for us.
Yeah.
That we get too self-righteous and indignant about, hey, this is my path, not understanding the fealty that is needed. Yeah.
Hey, I think we got time for one more, sir.
I am a poet, not a prophet. I just observed today, but what I see is telling me we must not look away. I'm a poet, not a prophet, but I see a correlation between what's past and what's coming fast and spreading through our nation. Now, it doesn't take a prophet to know that what we should do, how to react to all the attacks on what God says is true. We all should be like prophets and spread God's truth with love so others see what life can be with faith in God above.
Ooh.
It's always great to have that connection to faith that Jeff Hildebrand brings in.
I know, because I'm like breaking it the entire time, and I'm like, they apostate sometimes in the show. That's such a problem at times. It's going to complete the end of the week, because many times it's like when I have to go to confession, I'm like, oh, okay. When I talk to the priest, how much time you got? I mean, when do you have to be somewhere else? Because I got a list here, and it's pages long. So yeah.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you so much for your poetry today. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, sir.
That's Jeff Hildebrandt. You can get his poetry if you go to Amazon.com, type in Jeff Hildebrandt, and you can see his poems there. He's got whole books. These are great books to purchase for gifts, for summer reading, for campfire reading, all that.
Yeah, and his wife just wants him out of the basement. She's like, can you get rid of these books? There's stuff I want to do down here.
That's right. Well, thank you again to Jeff. Thank you to all of our callers, all of the listeners that participate in an absolutely wonderful week. We are Denver's top talk radio show because of your involvement, because of your voice being heard. There's no other show like this in Denver. We appreciate you all so very much. So from Bill and I and everybody here at 710 KNUS, have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 K.